We're going to take a look at the 5-number summary, minimum, Q1, Q2, Q3, maximum, range, and IQR. We're going to start with a model of our hand to represent the 5-number summary. Our pinky finger will represent the minimum. Our thumb will represent the maximum. The difference between the minimum and the maximum is the range. Let's take a look at this data set here. 1, 4, 2, 5, 3. Well, as you know, when working with data and looking at values in our data set, we need to go ahead and put those in order. So once we have them in order, least to greatest, our data set is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've gone ahead and identified the minimum and the maximum. The minimum of this data set is 1, and the maximum of this data set is 5. How far spread out is our minimum from our maximum? Well, the minimum is 4 away from the maximum, so the range is 4. Another way to find the range is the maximum minus the minimum. Let's take a look at some other values now. The median, quartile 2, or Q2, all refer to the middle value in our data set. The first half of the data is from the minimum to the median. Quartile 1, or Q1, is the middle value in the first half of the data set. The second half of the data set is from the median, or Q2, to the maximum. And quartile 3 is the middle value in the second half of the data set. The IQR is the range of the middle 50% of the data set, from Q1 to Q3. Let's take a look at IQR with the same data set. The first thing we're going to do is identify the median. So in the data set 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the middle value, the median, or Q2, is 3. Next, we're going to divide the data set into 2 halves excluding the median. The first half will be from the minimum to just before the median, 1 and 2. And the second half will be from just after the median to the maximum, 4 and 5. Next, we're going to find Q1, or the middle of the first half of the data set. So what value lies directly between 1 and 2? 1.5. You can do that a couple of different ways. You might think about numbers on a number line, 1, 1.5, 2, or you can find the mean of the 2 values. 1 plus 2 is 3, and 3 divided by 2 is 1.5. Now let's take a look at the second half of the data set, 4 and 5. Let's see if we can identify the middle value in the second half of the data set, or Q3. What number lies directly between 4 and 5? 4.5. You could think of that in a number line, 4, 4.5, 5. Or you could find the mean of the 2 values. 4 plus 5 is 9, and 9 divided by 2 is 4.5. Let's take a look at the IQR. The IQR is the spread of the middle 50% of the data. How far is Q1 from Q3? In this case, how far is 1.5 from 4.5? 1.5 is 3 away from 4.5. The IQR is 3. Another way to think about that is Q3 minus Q1 gives you the IQR. So 4.5 minus 1.5 is 3. Let's take a look at another data set. 20, 5, 14, 3, 7, 21, 16, 8. This data set has 8 pieces of data. What's the first thing we need to do with this data? Put it in order. You're exactly right. Okay, now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to find the median, or Q2, the middle value in the data set. The middle value in this data set falls between 8 and 14. There are a couple of ways you can do this. One is to create a number line from 8 to 14 and find the middle value. Another might be to list the digits between 8 and 14 and find the middle value. Or you may add 8 plus 14 to get 22, and 22 divided by 2 is 11. So you can also find the mean of the two middle values. So our median in this data set is 11. Notice 11 does not appear listed in our data set. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to split the data set into halves, excluding the median. The first half goes from the minimum to just before the median, 3, 5, 7, and 8. And the second half goes from just after the median to the max, 14, 16, 20, 21. Notice we do not include the median in either half of the data set. The next thing we're going to do is identify Q1, or quartile 1. And to do that, we're going to find the middle value in the first half of the data set. So the two middle numbers in the first half of the data set are 5 and 7. Well, the value directly between 5 and 7 is 6. You could think about that on a number line, 5, 6, 7. Or you might add 5 plus 7 to get 12, and 12 divided by 2 is 6. Next, we're going to look at the second half of the data set, 14, 16, 20, and 21. The two middle numbers in the second half of the data set are 16 and 20, and the value between those is 18. You may think of that on a number line, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20, or 16 plus 20 is 36, and 36 divided by 2 is 18. The next thing we're going to look at is the IQR. Remember, the IQR measures the spread of the middle 50% of our data from Q1 to Q3. So how far away on a number line would 6 be from 18? Well, there would be a spread of 12, so the IQR is 12. Another way to find that is to use the formula Q3 minus Q1 equals the IQR. Q3 is 18, Q1 is 6, 18 minus 6 is 12, so our IQR is 12. Let's take a look at another example. The digits are 14, 2, 5, 9, 7, 5, 4, 3, and 12. This data set has 9 pieces of data. And what's the first thing we need to do when working with our data? Yep, put it in order least to greatest. Right, so we're going to start by identifying our median. The middle value in this data set is 5. 5 is our median, or our Q2, whichever you prefer to use to reference that number. We're going to split the data set into two halves, excluding the median. The first half of the data set will go from the minimum to just before the median, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And the second half of the data set will go from just after the median to the max, 7, 9, 12, and 14. Next, we'll identify quartile 1, the middle value in the first half of the data set. The two numbers in the middle of the first half of the data set are 3 and 4. And 3.5 lies directly between 3 and 4. You may think about that on a number line, 3, 3.5, 4. Or you may find the mean of those two numbers. 3 plus 4 is 7, and 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. Next, we're going to find Q3. We do that by identifying the middle value. We have 9 and 12, and directly between 9 and 12 is 10.5. You could do that on a number line, or you might even notice that 9 is 3 away from 12, and half of that is 1.5. So 1.5 more than 9 is 10.5, or 12 plus 9 is 21, and 21 divided by 2 is 10.5. The IQR is the range of the middle 50% of the data. From 3.5 to 10.5, there is a spread of 7. So the IQR is 7. And the formula for that, Q3 minus Q1, is the IQR. So in this case, 10.5 minus 3.5 equals 7.